Hello, this is a Blüthner Star 4A, that's 166 centimetres long, 5 foot 5.5 inches, made in 1929. It's just come into stock and want to look at it to see what sort of work would improve the piano. Now the case is a matte finish, very well done actually, and I don't know if you can pick up the colour from the video, but it looks a bit yellower to me on the video than it looks in live. It's a slightly redder colour, I think. Maybe the photos we've taken will show it up better. But you can see the grain, very flame mahogany or fiddleback mahogany, sometimes they call it. But this is the typical grain of Bluthners of that period. They did make a lot of small grand pianos, but the 5'5" one is not nearly as common as I'd like it to be. It's the 5 foot one that's very common. And this one is just slightly bigger and has therefore more resonance, especially in the bass. These are original strings, original tuning pins. We've said many times before, the lever's floppy, it's because the tuning pin's very small. This is standard medium star, and that's good. These top manufacturers often use very small tuning pins, which is helpful. The inside, obviously, we're going to clean up a bit, but generally the case is in good. Well, the case is perfect. The frame is in very good condition too. There's always on Bluthners you get the serial number underneath the badge above it, and the last date is usually near the date of the piano. The last one on this one seems to be 1922. I haven't shown this on any videos before. 1865, they got a prize there. Paris, you can see the different places that they got prizes in, and the Melbourne there, Australia, and the obviously extremely respected firm. In many ways the very best pianos they made, and I think many technicians would agree the tone of them is so superb, and the construction is very, very stable. They stay in tune extremely well. Now this is slightly longer than the model 4, which is the most common one. There's more resonance, I think, but there aren't nearly as many as there are model 4, so very pleased to get hold of this one. And a beautiful bass sound. So these are the original Blüthner strings, pretty certain about that. As I say, the tuning pins are original, so the strings are original. We kept extremely well in terms of the acoustics of the piano to have tight pins. This is typical coning that they do. This is typical Blüthner. There's the other end of the strings. So just haven't shown this on other videos too. I don't think the crimping kind of, I suppose you call it crimping, they do here is typical Blüthner. It's to stop the winding coming loose, because when winding comes loose, you can even often get a very thin tone, and also it can actually buzz too. You have to twist the string if you get that problem, or crimp it a little bit yourself. Now the weight of the keys is too heavy. There's other issues we're going to have to look at anyway, but just thought I'd show you this because we do weigh keys. 58 grams that is, and should be really, well, 50 plus or minus 2 or 3. It's the kind of area that we're aiming for. All of that's acceptable to a musician, depending obviously on how, if you want a lot of heavy practice, you might want it slightly heavier. It's consistent, but it's too heavy. But that's not the only problem really. Round here, although it sounds reasonably good, because it's a Blüthner, it'll sound very good anyway, it's not nearly as good as it could sound. It's not clear, it's not crisp sounding, and we'll see why in a second. Now the problem is that these hammers have worn too thin. They've been refaced more than once, I would think, and that is very thin. There's 3mm there. On a new hammer, measured one, it's around about 7-8 millimeters. We'll have a look at it compared to another hammer in a second. But this is an unusual. It's not a normal roller system. So we've decided that we're going to change the hammers, shanks, and rollers on this piano to get new hammers and a smoother feel. These work obviously. I've adjusted the springs weren't working properly on the other ones. Let's see. I've adjusted this one, so if you release it, that goes up. The spring here is adjusted just to try it out. I've not got any problems with the springs, but it doesn't feel to me as smooth on this system as it does with a normal roller. So as obviously we would do, said many times before, hammers, shanks and rollers, and put the right weight, the right size of hammer on, they know how to re-weight the whole action. So there's a new set of hammers on a Bechstein. We'll compare the size of that. You can see how much that's been refaced, and there's the Bechstein, 7mm approximately I measured it at. These are new Renner hammers. Well, obviously these are Bechstein hammers, they're not the same. If you look at the roller though, you compare that with what the Blüthner's got at the moment. Now obviously Blüthner chose that, and it's a good design, but changing it, it's easier for us to put the roller on. As long as we measure it correctly from where the jack is to the centre pin, which I've talked to our technician about, and he's confident about that. We've done these before, so we have changed them before. So but a normal roller we find a bit smoother as well. So that's what we'll be doing, and the action then should be perfect, and we've also got to regulate it and weight it and so on. So that's the assessment of a Blüthner Style 4A. That's 166 centimetres long, 5 foot 5.5 inches, and made in 1929. Such a good period for Blüthners. If you're looking for a small piano, but not too small, it's slightly bigger than the Style 4, which is 150 centimetres, which is much more common. There are not nearly enough of these pianos around to meet the demand, so we're very pleased to get it in and can really thoroughly recommend it. The hammers are letting it down at the moment, although even so, because it's a Blüthner, it still sounds beautiful. But they've been refaced so much, and we need to change them now. So hammers, shanks and rollers, as we've said many times before, will be changing. Now last of all, if you have a problem coming in, then we're quite used to it. It's getting more and more common for people to buy without coming in. Obviously we do prefer you to come in, you can't feel the touch yourself. But we can guarantee you that this touch will be like any new piano really. We'll get it so refined when we finished it. We'll re-weight it. And there's many other things to do that I haven't mentioned earlier on. Fine regulation takes a long time. There's a 5-year guarantee on all our pianos, and if you want to ask any more questions, or maybe if you are able to, you can do a live video with us. We can show you different aspects of the piano, or hopefully this video is enough though, and to show you just how good the piano is. I can thoroughly recommend it. Thank you very much for listening. We've now finished the work that we mentioned earlier. So now we've changed the hammers, shanks and rollers, and also re-weighted the keys. This key we're aiming at 50 grams, it's actually 49 grams, so 50 plus or minus 2 is acceptable. And we graduate down to the bass, and this is meant to be about 52, so it's 50 in the centre, 52 in the bass. This is actually, I think, 53. It's going to go down at 53 grams, to encourage it down. There we go. And then 48 grams in the top treble, so this is 48 grams. It's probably 47 grams or so, so again plus or minus 2 grams. You might have also noticed that middle D key was chipped. We've repaired that chip now. The technicians have managed to repair it, and so you can barely see it. So now the hammers have been replaced, hitting much more cleanly. There's much less surface area of hammer hitting the string, and the hammers are also new hammers, so we'd be able to voice them accurately. You hear a much crisper sound. So now with new hammers, it's about 6.5mm, so that's from the wood to the top of the hammer. So that's double really what it was before. You couldn't reface the old ones successfully really, there had been too many refacings done. And now that has a nice bounce to it. It's voiced down the bottom here first, as we've mentioned many times before, then very deeply here, and then less deeply till you get the right bounce. It's got to bounce nicely, so you get the harmonics coming out, and it's also got to have a cleaner area hitting the string. So now the tone of this Blüthner is wonderful. So this is a normal roller system fitted. Most Blüthners have this, so just experimented with the other style for a while. And this is a new roller. As you can see, there's a Renner, shanks, hinges we've mentioned many times before. The hinges are now very even, and we've regulated the piano so it just plays very evenly indeed. Now the rollers, as we mentioned before, are lubricated not just with, well, here it's not just got graphite here, but also the roller's got French chalk, just to make it extra smooth. And new pianos also have that French chalk. It's really called talc, or Teflon powder is often used by technicians. And we mentioned this before, but just thought I'd show you. Now here's some similar notes played as were played when the piano hadn't got new hammers on. So you can hear the sound much crisper now. So now the hammers and shanks and rollers have been put on and we've reweighted the keyboard. Just a brief playing of the piano. It does feel very controllable now. Just as controllable as a new piano, by the way. Even the bass sounds better because the new hammers hit more cleanly. And really the tone of a piano is improved an awful lot more usually by changing the hammers than by doing anything else. Changing the strings would come next, but these are good Blüthner strings and it wouldn't sound much different if you changed them. It wouldn't sound much better. So as long as the tuning pins are tight, it's really good if you can keep the original strings. Thank you very much for listening.